What is going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be tier ranking Group of 5 playoff contenders for 2024. I wanted to do this video because with the expansion of the college football playoff happening, the playoff is now going to have an automatic bid for one Group of 5 team, and the Group of 5 playoff race could be very fun to watch. And in this video, I will be tier ranking 25 different Group of 5 teams, and as you can see, I have 5 different categories for this tier ranking. At the top, you have the best teams. This is a category for the Group of 5 teams that I'm very high on. And these are teams that I'm pretty certain will be top contenders for the 2024 college football playoffs. The second category that we have is the maybe teams. These are teams that I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they made the playoffs, and they will probably be top contenders for their conference championships. This third category is for the sleeper Group of 5 teams. These are teams that I'm probably not super high on, but they could potentially be a surprise team and at least come close to making the playoffs. And if they put it all together, they can be dangerous. The fourth category is for the unlikely teams. These are teams that would really surprise me if they made the playoffs, and I really don't see it happening. But these teams either have upside heading into next season or they have a winning culture, but I realistically cannot put them any higher than tier 4. But the tier 4 teams could be solid Group of 5 teams. I just don't see them as legit playoff contenders. And the fifth category is the teams that I think are trending up, and I wanted to give them recognition, but they have absolutely no chance of making the college football playoffs next season. These teams would need a miracle to make the college football playoffs in 2024. But maybe in a couple seasons they can contend for a spot in the college football playoffs, and that's why I think these teams are trending up. We will pick 5 Group of 5 teams for each of these categories to fill out this tier list. But as always, before we get into ranking these teams, let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you'll love this channel, because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing, and also consider joining my Discord server down in the description below. But without further ado, let's start ranking these teams. And as you can see, we have a bunch of college football teams here, but we won't be covering all of these teams, and we are only covering 25 of the best Group of 5 teams. And the first team is Air Force, and I'm putting Air Force in the unlikely teams category. I'm not very high in Air Force heading into next season. They rank last in the country for return on production, and I think next season is going to be a difficult year for Troy Calhoun. But realistically, I cannot leave them off this list because Troy Calhoun is a very good head coach, and Air Force has had a very good winning culture for a long time. Troy Calhoun is one of the more underrated coaches in college football, and you can never overlook this Air Force team. But I do have them in that tier 4 category because they really lost a lot of talent. The next team is Appalachian State, and I'm pretty high on App State. They haven't had a losing season since 2013, and they've had 5 double-digit win seasons since joining the FBS. Next season, they return a decent amount of talent, including Joey Aguilera at quarterback. App State is my favorite to win the Sun Belt. They have a solid defense and one of the top Group of 5 quarterbacks, so I have App State in that tier 1 category. The next team is Arkansas State. Arkansas State had a good offense last season, and they returned 82% of offensive production from last season. In 2022, they won 3 games, and in 2023, they won 6 games, and they made their first bowl game since 2019. I like this Arkansas State team, and I do think they are trending up, but they are not quite ready to be a playoff contender just yet because the defense has a lot to clean up. But they are very young and they could be solid next season, so I do have them in that tier 5 category. The next team is Boise State. If I had to bet on one Group of 5 team to make the playoffs, I would probably bet on Boise State. They return 8 starters on defense, and they're going to have one of the top defenses in the Group of 5 with head coach Spencer Danielson. They will have a solid rushing attack, and they brought in former 5-star quarterback out of high school Malachi Nelson from the transfer portal. This team has the tools necessary to make the 12-team playoffs. I definitely have Boise State in that tier 1 category. The next team is Colorado State, and I think this team is really trending up. Jay Novell is a good head coach. I don't see them having the talent to make a run for the playoffs, but they were very competitive last season, and Jay Novell should turn this Colorado State team into a winning program just like he did with the mediocre Nevada program. If there's one thing that will help Colorado State to a good season, then it will be the defense, and I have Colorado State in that tier 5 category. I think they are trending up, but they aren't a playoff team. The next team is Fresno State. Fresno State is always a solid team, and I expect them to be pretty good next season. They only return 48% of production on defense, which is 106 in the country, but the offense is going to be one of the Group of 5's best. And if Mikey Keene stays healthy and goes crazy next season, then you can make a case for this team to be in that tier 1 category. But I decided to put them in that tier 2 category because I am still a bit unsure about how the defense will look, and Mikey Keene needs to stay healthy. The next team is James Madison. James Madison ranks 126th in the country for return on production. They lost their head coach, they lost their top playmakers on offense, and they lose a very good quarterback with Jordan McLeod transferring to another Group of 5 team. They lost a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, but they did a good job in the transfer portal. And I do think I have to have them in that Tier 2 category because I still expect them to be a top contender for the Sun Belt Championship, and I can't expect a huge fall off for this team. The next team is Jacksonville State, and I have them in that Tier 5 category. They are top 30 in the country for return and production, and they won 9 games in their first season at the FBS level last season. I think that this team is trending up, but they are in a weak conference and they would probably have to go undefeated to make the playoffs, and I don't see that happening. The next team is Liberty, and I'm going to put Liberty in that Tier 1 category right behind Boise State for now. They returned Caden Salter at quarterback, and they would have actually been the team last year to make the playoffs if there was a 12-team playoff last season. I think Liberty is an obvious Tier 1 contender because they returned Caden Salter at quarterback, and I also believe they returned their starting running back Quentin Cooley, so they are definitely a top contender for the 2024 college football playoffs. The next team is Louisiana. I know Louisiana only won 6 games last season, but I am very high on this team heading into next season. I'm going to put Louisiana in that Tier 2 category right behind Fresno State and James Madison. Louisiana is top 13 in the country for return and production. Last season, 5 of their 7 losses were one-possession losses. This team is capable of winning games, and they return a lot, so I have them in that Tier 2 category because there's a lot of talent on the offensive side for this team. The next team is Marshall, and I'm a little bit unsure about this Marshall team. I don't expect them to be bad, and I don't expect them to be that great either. They only won 6 games last season, but they have a good head coach, and they brought in 22 transfers. I'm going to put them in that Tier 4 category. I am a bit unsure about this team, but they could be a solid team that wins 8 or 9 games, but I do not see them contending for the playoffs. The next team is Memphis, and I'm going to put Memphis right ahead of Liberty. I think Memphis is really trending up, and this could be the year for Memphis football. They're 26 in the country for return and production. They were pretty good last season, and they won 10 games. They returned one of the top Group of 5 quarterbacks, Seth Heineken, but they also have brought in 20 transfer portal additions, and if they take a step up on defense, this team could be very good. I think they definitely belong in that Tier 1 category. The next team is Miami, Ohio. I have them in that Tier 3 category, and they could be a sleeper team. They won the MAC last season, and they actually ranked top 10 in the country for return and production. I really don't see the MAC getting a team into the playoffs, but you never know. And Miami, Ohio is a good team with a very solid defense, so I have them in that Tier 3 category. The next team is Northern Illinois, another team from the MAC, and I have them in the Tier 5 category. I think they are trending up and they could potentially win the MAC in 2024, but I don't see them making the playoffs. They returned 72% of production on defense. They went 3-9 in 2022, but they went 7-6 in 2023, and they won their bowl game, so it was a decent step up for this Northern Illinois team. The defense was really solid. 5 of their 6 losses were one-possession losses, and if they win half of those one-possession games, they win 9 or 10 games last season. Northern Illinois is definitely a sleeper team to win the MAC in 2024, but they need to figure it out at the quarterback position. The next team is San Diego State. Last season was San Diego State's first losing season since 2009. New head coach Sean Lewis will have to turn this team around, but I already like where this team is heading because they have done a very good job in the transfer portal. They brought in many offensive additions, and quarterback AJ Duffy from Florida State could be solid. I really don't see this team staying down. The next team is South Florida. I would like to think of South Florida as a serious sleeper contender, but I have so many teams on this tier ranking, so I have South Florida in that Tier 2 category because I don't see a lot of Group of 5 teams being better than them. They return 87% of offensive production, which is top 4 in the country. Head coach Alex Golesh has had a big turnaround with this team. They only won 1 game in 2022, but they won their bowl game and won 7 games in 2023. The offense is going to be explosive. They returned Byron Brown at quarterback and Sean Atkins at receiver, but they also add a 4-star receiver from Purdue out of the transfer portal. The defense is the only concern I have for this team, but they have brought in 4 3-star secondary additions out of the transfer portal, so we will see if the secondary sees improvement, but I trust Alex Golesh to keep this team heading in the right direction, and the offense alone should help this team be a top contender for the American Championship in 2023. And I have them in that Tier 2 category right ahead of Louisiana. The next team is Texas State. This team is a big sleeper team to win the Sun Belt Conference in 2024. They picked up former James Madison quarterback that I was talking about earlier, Jordan McLeod. They have the number 1 transfer portal class, and they won 8 games last season. The defense is atrocious though, and that is why I only could put them in that Tier 3 category. You could make a debate for them to be in that Tier 2 category, but I think we kind of have to wait and see with this Texas State team. But the offense is going to be very good. The next team is Toledo. They were kind of a similar team to Miami, Ohio last season, but I think Miami, Ohio has more upside heading into next season. And Toledo loses a bunch of production, so I'm putting Toledo right behind Miami, Ohio. Toledo was just playing in their conference championship last season, and I do trust their head coach, so I do have them in that Tier 3 category. The next team is Troy. Maybe I should have Troy in that Tier 3 category because they had a very impressive season in 2023, They won their conference and won 11 games, but the situation is looking tough for Troy heading into 2024. They lose their head coach and they rank 129th in the country for return to production. I do think that Parker could be a decent head coach, but I do have some questions about this Troy team, so I only have them at the top of that Tier 4 category. The next team is Tulane, and I am definitely putting them in that Tier 1 category right behind Boise State. A lot of people expect a fall off from Tulane because they lost head coach Willie Fritz after 8 seasons. They also lose NFL quarterback Michael Pratt and their top receiver Chris Braswell. The defense loses talent, but I still expect the defense to be very solid. And they have done a fantastic job in the transfer portal. They brought in quarterback Ty Thompson from Oregon, and they also bring in Mario Williams from USC and Chaz Preston from Alabama at receiver. They have the best transfer portal group in the American Conference. They also return Hughes at running back, who ran for over 1,000 yards last season. This team is not falling off at all, and that is just my honest opinion. And I definitely have Tulane in that Tier 1 category. The next team is UNLV. UNLV is another team that people are expecting to take a step down, which makes sense because they lose quarterback Jada Mayava, who helped lead them to a Mountain West Championship appearance in 2023. UNLV has not had a winning culture recently, so the question is, can they carry over the momentum from last season? And I say absolutely. They have the #1 transfer portal class in the Mountain West, and I could see the defense improving with Antonio Doyle on the edge. They also bring in many additions in the secondary out of the transfer portal, and this team is a big sleeper team. Everybody is forgetting about them because they lose quarterback Jada Mayava, but they return one of the most underrated receivers in the country, Ricky White, who had nearly 1,500 receiving yards last season. This team still has a lot of talent, and I have UNLV right behind Fresno State in that Tier 2 category, and I almost want to put them ahead of Fresno State. The next team is Utah State, and I'm going to put them right in the middle of that Tier 5 category. Utah State is a very interesting team. They won 6 games the past 2 seasons, and don't forget, in 2021 they actually won 11 games. Head coach Blake Anderson might get Utah State back to being a double-digit win team. Maybe not next season, but I think they have upside heading forward. The defense is very bad, but the offense was solid last season, and they bring in 2 Power 5 quarterbacks, Bryson Barnes from Utah and Spencer Petras from Iowa. They have brought in 10 transfer portal additions on defense, so we will see if Utah State can win more than 6 games in 2023. Utah State could have a breakout season soon, but I don't see them contending for the playoffs, so I do have them only in that Tier 5 category. The next team is UTSA. UTSA is always one of the top group of 5 teams, but I do expect them to take a bit of a step down in 2024. So I only have them in that Tier 3 category, and they are close to Tier 4. I do have to have them in that Tier 3 category because they have been a very good team recently, but they rank 111th in the country for return to production, and I am a bit concerned about the offensive side of the ball. They lose their quarterback Frank Harris. Don't get me wrong, Owen McCown could be a solid quarterback, but this team really lost a lot of talent, and I'm just personally higher on other teams in the American Conference, so I only have them in that Tier 3 category. The next team is Western Kentucky, and I have them in the middle of the Tier 4 category. Western Kentucky is looking good at the quarterback spot. They had a strong finish to last season, and I could see this team possibly giving Liberty a run for their money in the Conference USA. I only have them in Tier 4 because I do think there are a lot of teams better than them, but Western Kentucky could be a sleeper team. And lastly, we got Wyoming, and I have them in the Tier 3 category. Wyoming is always a solid group of 5 team, and they have a big home field advantage factor. They will have a new head coach, but the defense should be solid, and they lost hardly anybody to the transfer portal, so they definitely have a good culture over there in Wyoming. Evan Silva-Boba will have to carry this team going forward, so we will see what he can do. But I do think Wyoming still belongs in that Tier 3 category, and I have them right ahead of UTSA. I know that I might have UTSA too low, but I definitely have some questions with UTSA heading into next season on both sides of the ball. So I'm kind of questioning myself for putting UTSA this low, but I'm not changing anything. But that is going to do it for my 2024 Group of 5 Playoff Contender tier rankings. You guys let me know what you would change about my tier rankings down in the comments below. But let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel, because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing, and also consider joining my Discord server down in the description below. But that is going to do it, guys, and peace out.